The smell hit Ambassador Drenkovalis before his shuttle even touched the ground. Smoke. Thick, brown, crawling smoke that seemed to hang over the entire region like a dirty blanket. His four arms crossed tightly against his chest as he watched through the window. Earth, the newest applicant to the Galactic Union, and apparently a planet that had not yet discovered proper ventilation. Dren was Telluri, a species known throughout the galaxy for two things: their sensitive taste buds and their brutal food reviews. He had destroyed the reputation of 17 planetary cuisines in his career. Entire restaurant industries had collapsed after his reports. He was proud of this. Food should be precise, scientific, perfect. What he saw outside was the opposite of perfect. The shuttle landed at New Austin Spaceport, and a delegation of humans waited on the platform. Dren noted their strange appearance. Only two arms, flat faces, skin in various shades of brown and pink. They smiled too much. A woman stepped forward. She was short, with dark hair pulled back tight and hands that looked rough from work. Ambassador Kovalis, welcome to Earth. I am Rosa Delgado, your liaison officer. Dren looked down at her. His blue skin seemed to glow in the Texas sun. The air here is contaminated, he said. Is there an industrial fire nearby? Rosa's smile did not break. No, sir. That is barbecue smoke. Many families in this region cook meat over wood fires. It is a tradition. Tradition. Dren repeated the word like it tasted bad. You burn your food on purpose? We smoke it, sir. There is a difference. Dren made a note on his datapad. Primitive thermal destruction methods still common. No understanding of molecular cuisine. The delegation moved to a transport vehicle. Secretary Harmon Webb, Earth's representative to the Galactic Union, sat across from Dren. He was a nervous man with thin hair and sweaty palms. The future of humanity's membership depended on this visit, and everyone knew it. Ambassador, Webb said carefully, we have prepared a formal dinner for tonight. Our finest chefs from around the world will present dishes that represent human culinary achievement. Dren did not look impressed. I have reviewed the nutritional data on human food. You consume dead animal flesh preserved through burning. You add plant extracts called spices that serve no nutritional purpose. You cover everything in sugar and salt. He shook his head. I expect very little. Rosa sat quietly in the corner. Her jaw was tight. That evening, Dren suffered through the formal dinner. Molecular gastronomy, artistic plating, foams and gels, and tiny portions on enormous plates. He ate without comment. The food was technically acceptable. Clean flavors. Propet temperaturas. But hollow. Empty. Like everything else in the galaxy. After dinner, Rosa approached Secretary Webb. Sir, may I make a suggestion? Webb looked at her with tired eyes. What is it? The ambassador has not really experienced Earth food. He has experienced rich people food. Let me show him something real. Webb hesitated. Miss Delgado, this is a diplomatic mission. We cannot risk offending him. With respect, sir, he is already offended. He decided we were primitive before he landed. The only way to change his mind is to show him what we actually are. Rosa stood straight. Let me take him to my family smokehouse. Webb thought about this for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. If this goes wrong, I will deny all knowledge of it. Rosa smiled. Understood. The next morning, Rosa presented the idea to Dren. He laughed. Actually laughed. The sound was unpleasant, like metal scraping metal. You want me to visit a building where you burn meat over fire? Like your ancestors did before they discovered electricity? Yes, Rosa said simply. Why would I agree to such a thing? Rosa met his eyes. She was not afraid of him. Because you were bored, Ambassador. I watched you at dinner. You ate everything and tasted nothing. You have reviewed so many perfect meals that perfection has become meaningless to you. She paused. When was the last time food surprised you? Dren's four arms went still. The question hung in the air between them. Come to my family smokehouse, Rosa continued. If you hate it, you can write whatever you want in your report. Call us primitives. Call our food garbage. But if you feel something, anything, you have to admit that humans might know something the rest of the galaxy has forgotten. Dren stared at her for a long time. This small human with rough hands and no fear. She was challenging him, a Telluride food critic who had destroyed worlds with his words. He should have refused. He should have filed a complaint about her disrespect. Instead, he said, "Very well. Show me this smokehouse." Rosa nodded. "We leave in 1 hour." The transport took them deep into the Texas countryside. Dren watched the landscape change from city to farmland to rolling hills covered in oak trees. The smoke smell grew stronger with every mile. Finally, they arrived at a simple brick building with a metal roof. Smoke poured from a chimney in the back. A wooden sign read, "Delgado Family Smokehouse, EST 2697. 150 years." This building had been burning meat for 150 years. Dren stepped out of the transport. His sensitive nostrils filled with smoke and fat and something else. Something he could not name. An old man walked out to greet them. He had Rose's eyes and calloused hands. "Welcome to our home," he said warmly. "I'm Miguel Delgado. Are you hungry?" Dren looked at the smoke, at this simple building, at this human family who had apparently dedicated their lives to burning animal flesh. "I'm here to observe," he said coldly. "Not to eat. Miguel Smail. That is what they all say. Come inside, ambassador. The brisket has been cooking since yesterday. It will be ready tomorrow morning." "Tomorrow? Your food takes 2 days to prepare." Miguel laughed. "Good food takes time, friend. Good food takes time." Dren followed them inside, his expression hard as stone. He had no idea his entire life was about to change. 14 hours. The humans expected him to wait 14 hours for a piece of meat. Dren stood in the corner of the smokehouse, his 4 arms folded, watching the Delgado family work. The building was hot and filled with smoke that made his eyes water. Brick pits lined one wall, each containing glowing coals and thick chunks of wood. Above the coals sat massive pieces of meat, wrapped in paper, slowly turning dark. "This is insane," Dren said. "On my world, we can prepare a nutritionally complete meal in 30 seconds. Rosa did not look up from the pit she was tending. "And how does that meal taste?" "Taste is irrelevant. Nutrition is what matters." Miguel Delgado laughed from across the room. He was adjusting the vents on another pit, controlling the airflow with the precision of a scientist. "My friend, you have just said the saddest thing I have ever heard." Dren made another note on his datapad. "Humans waste enormous time on food preparation, inefficient use of resources, cultural obsession with primitive methods." The night passed slowly. Dren refused to sit, refused to eat the snacks the family offered, refused to participate in their conversations. He simply watched and judged. But as the hours went by, something strange happened. He began to notice things. He noticed how Rosa checked the temperature of the meat every 30 minutes, making tiny adjustments. He noticed how Miguel selected specific pieces of wood based on their smell. He noticed how the family talked and laughed together while they worked, sharing stories from generations past. "My grandmother started this smokehouse," Rosa said at one point, not really talking to Dren, just talking. "She came here from Mexico with nothing but a family recipe and a dream. She saved money for 10 years to buy this land, built the first pit with her own hands." "Why?" Dren asked despite himself. Rosa looked at him. "Because she wanted to feed people, not just fill their stomachs. Feed them, make them feel warm and welcome and loved." She turned back to the pit. "That is what barbecue is. It is not just food. It is love made edible." Dren snorted. "That is sentimental nonsense." "Maybe," Rosa said. "But sentimental nonsense has kept this place running for 150 years. Around midnight, Dren's translator device began struggling. The family used words it could not process. Bark, smoke ring, burn ends, the fat cap, the point, and the flat. "What is a smoke ring?" Dren demanded. Miguel walked over with a knife and cut a thin slice from a test piece of meat. He held it up to the light. A pink ring, about half an inch thick, circled the outer edge of the dark meat. "This," Miguel said with obvious pride. "The smoke penetrates the meat and reacts with the proteins. It creates this ring. A good smoke ring means you did something right. It means the fire and the meat became friends." "Friends," Dren repeated. You speak of dead animal flesh as if it has feelings. Everything has a spirit, Miguel said seriously. The cow that gave us this meat lived a good life on a ranch 200 miles from here. It ate grass and felt the sun. When it died, we honored it by treating its meat with respect. We did not rush. We did not cut corners. We gave it 14 hours of slow heat and gentle smoke. He smiled. That is not primitive, Ambassador. That is gratitude. Dren had no response to that. As dawn approached, the atmosphere in the smokehouse changed. The family moved faster now. Rosa checked her watch every few minutes. Miguel began laying out knives and cutting boards. Even the young children who had been sleeping in the corner woke up with excitement. It is almost time, Rosa said. Dren felt something he had not felt in many years. Anticipation. He crushed the feeling immediately. This was absurd. He was a Telluride food critic. He had eaten at the finest restaurants in 17-star systems. He would not be excited about burned meat from a brick building in a primitive countryside. The sun rose over the Texas hills. Orange light poured through the smokehouse windows. Rosa opened the main pit, and a wave of smoke and heat rolled out. Inside sat the brisket. It was almost black on the outside, with a thick crust that had cracked and wrinkled like old leather. That looks like a mistake, Dren said. Rosa ignored him. She lifted the meat carefully, carried it to the cutting board, and let it rest for 30 minutes. The waiting was unbearable. Even Dren found himself leaning forward. Finally, Miguel handed Rosa a long knife. The family gathered around. Even the children stood on their toes to see. Rosa made the first cut. The knife slid through the black exterior and revealed something miraculous inside. Pink, tender, glistening meat. Juice ran down the sides. The smoke rings circled the edge like a glowing halo. The smell hit Dren like a physical force. Salt and smoke and fat and something deeper, something ancient, something his Telluride brain could not identify, but his body recognized immediately. His forearms dropped to his sides. His eyes went wide. Now, Rosa said, placing a thick slice on a small plate. You eat. She held the plate out to him. The meat sat there, steaming, waiting. Dren looked at it for a long moment. Then he looked at Rosa, at Miguel, at the family who had stayed awake all night to prepare this moment. If I hate it, he said, I will destroy your planet's reputation. Rosa nodded. We know. And if I enjoy it, Rosa smiled. Then you have to tell the truth. Dren picked up the slice of brisket with two of his hands. It was warm and soft and heavier than it looked. He took a bite. Time stopped. Dren stood frozen in the smoky warmth of the Delgado smokehouse, his jaw working slowly, his four eyes wide as dinner plates. The brisket sat on his tongue like a revelation, like the answer to a question he had forgotten how to ask. The meat fell apart without effort. The fat melted instantly, coating his mouth with richness. The smoke flavor was not harsh or bitter, but deep and complex, like tasting a memory. And underneath all of that was something else. Something almost sweet, almost sad, almost alive. His translator device made a strange buzzing sound and displayed an error message. No equivalent term found in Telluride language database. Dren tried to speak. He could not find words. Rosa watched him carefully. Ambassador, are you well? Dren swallowed. His forearms hung limp at his sides. He looked at the remaining brisket on his plate, then at Rosa, then back at the plate. What have you done to me? He whispered. Miguel stepped forward with concern. Is something wrong? Is the meat bad? Bad. Dren's voice cracked. Bad. He grabbed another piece with trembling fingers and stuffed it into his mouth. Then another. His usual precise eating habits vanished completely. He ate like he had been starving for 300 years. The Delgado family watched in amazement as the arrogant Telluride ambassador devoured the entire plate. Juice ran down his blue chin. His eyes never left the meat. When the plate was empty, Dren looked up. His expression was different now. The coldness was gone. In its place was something vulnerable, almost afraid. More, he said. I need more. For analysis purposes. Rosa hid her smile. Of course, Ambassador. For analysis. She cut him another plate. He ate it faster than the first. A young Telluride aide named Vena had accompanied Dren on this trip. She had been standing quietly in the corner, too junior to speak and less spoken to. But now she stepped forward hesitantly. Ambassador, may I also analyze the food? Dren nodded without looking at her. He was already reaching for a third plate. Vena took a small piece of brisket and placed it in her mouth. For a moment, nothing happened. Then her lower lip began to tremble. Her eyes filled with moisture. She was crying. Telluride did not cry. Their tear ducts had evolved away millions of years ago. They were considered a primitive biological response, wasteful and unnecessary. But Vena was crying. Real tears rolled down her blue cheeks as she chewed. This is impossible, she said between sobs. This should not exist. Food is not supposed to make you feel things. Rosa's father handed her a napkin. Food should always make you feel things, child. That is the whole point. Over the next hour, Dren ate his way through an embarrassing amount of brisket. He kept inventing excuses, research, comparative analysis, quality control sampling. Nobody believed him, but nobody said anything. Finally, his stomach full to bursting, he sat down heavily on a wooden bench. His forearms spread out in exhaustion. He stared at the ceiling. I have eaten at the finest restaurants in the galaxy, he said quietly. I have tasted dishes prepared by chefs with 1,000 years of training. I have consumed meals that cost more than some planets earn in a year. He paused. None of it was like this. Rosa sat down next to him. What was different? Dren thought for a long time. Your food has a soul, he finally said. I do not know how else to describe it. When I eat Telluride food, I taste nutrients and textures and chemical compounds. When I ate your brisket, I tasted. He struggled for words. I tasted time. I tasted patience. I tasted love. Miguel nadit sazli. Now you understand. I understand nothing, Dren said. I'm more confused than I have ever been. He looked at Rosa with new eyes. What else do you cook with smoke? Rosa grinned. That was the question she had been waiting for. Ambassador, we have only just begun. There are ribs. There's pulled pork. There is smoked chicken and sausage and burnt ends. There's a whole world of barbecue you have not yet discovered. Dren's 4 eyes went wide. There is more. So much more. For the first time since arriving on Earth, Ambassador Dren Kovala smiled. It looked strange on his face, like a muscle that had not been used in decades, finally remembering how to work. Then I must stay, he said, for research purposes. Rosa nodded seriously. Of course. Research. This changes nothing, Dren added quickly. I'm still going to file my report on human cuisine. I'm still going to evaluate Earth objectively. Of course. I simply need more data before I can reach conclusion. Naturally, Dren looked at the smokehouse, at the brick pits and the wooden walls and the family who had stayed awake all night to feed a stranger who had mocked their culture. Your grandmother, he said slowly, the one who built this place. She wanted to make people feel warm and welcome and loved. You said that. Rosa nodded. She did. I have not felt welcome anywhere in 40 years. Dren's voice was barely a whisper. My job is to destroy, to criticize, to find fault. He looked down at his empty plate. I forgot what it felt like to simply enjoy something. Miguel put a rough hand on Dren's shoulder. Then stay, friend. Stay and remember. We have plenty of wood and plenty of meat and plenty of time. Dren did not trust himself to speak. He simply nodded. Outside, the Texas sun climbed higher into the sky. Inside, the fires burned low and steady, doing their slow work. And Ambassador Dren Kovalis, the most feared food critic in the galaxy, quietly asked Rosa to teach him about ribs. 3 days passed, and Ambassador Dren Kovalis became someone nobody recognized. He showed up at the smokehouse before sunrise. He wore the same formal diplomatic robes, but they were now stained with grease and smelled like oak smoke. His 4 arms, once always folded in judgment, now reached eagerly for whatever Rosa was cooking. Ribs changed him further. He had not expected the bones. On Telluride, food came in perfect cubes and spheres. The idea of eating around a structure, of working for each bite, seemed barbaric at first. Then he tasted a rack of pork ribs glazed with Rosa's family sauce. The meat pulled away from the bone with just a gentle tug. The sauce was sweet and tangy and slightly spicy. The smoke had penetrated deep into the meat, creating layers of flavor that revealed themselves slowly as he chewed. "This is violence," Drin said with his mouth full. "This is beautiful violence." Rosa laughed. "That is the best description of ribs I have ever heard." Pulled pork came next. Rosa showed him how they cooked pork shoulder for 16 hours until it fell apart at the touch of a fork. She mixed it with vinegar sauce and served it on soft white bread. Dren ate 4 sandwiches and asked for a 5th. "On my world," he said between bites, "we have not invented new foods in 300 years. Our cuisine reached what we call perfection. Optimal nutrition, optimal texture, optimal efficiency." He shook his head. "We killed food. We turned it into medicine." Miguel nodded sadly. "That is a tragedy. I did not understand that until now." Dren looked at his sauce-covered hands. "I spent my entire career attacking other species for their primitive cooking methods. I called their food wasteful, inefficient, sentimental." He paused. "I was jealous." Rosa raised her eyebrows. "Jealous? Yes. They still knew how to enjoy eating. We had forgotten. I had forgotten." He picked up another rib. "I think I was angry at them for having something I had lost." The next morning, Drin discovered burnt ends. Burnt ends were the crusty, caramelized pieces cut from the point of the brisket. Twice smoked, chewy on the outside, impossibly tender on the inside. They were considered the treasure of Texas barbecue, and pitmasters often kept them for themselves. Miguel brought out a small plate of them for Drin. "These are special," he said. "We do not serve these to everyone." Drin tried one. His 4 eyes rolled back in his head. "I need to sit down," he said. "I think I am having a medical event." "That is called happiness," Rosa said. "It happens when you eat burnt ends." Drin ate the entire plate while sitting on the floor. Later that afternoon, Rosa introduced him to the sides. Coleslaw with creamy dressing. Baked beans slow-cooked with chunks of brisket. Cornbread with honey butter. Pickles and onions and jalapenos. "Why is there more food?" Drin asked in wonder. "The meat is already perfect. Why do you add more?" "Because barbecue is not just about the meat," Rosa explained. "It is about the whole experience. The sides balance the richness. The pickles cut through the fat. The beans add sweetness. Everything works together." Drin, try the baked beans. "These have meat in them." "Yes." "You put meat in the side dish for the meat." "Yes." "Humans are insane." "Yes." He ate 3 bowls. That evening, Dren experienced his first food coma. He had eaten more in one day than he normally ate in a week. His body, and used to such abundance, began to shut down. His eyes grew heavy. His arms went limp. His breathing slowed. "I am dying," he announced. Rosa patted his shoulder. "You're not dying. You are digesting. This is death. This is how it ends." Miguel brought him a glass of sweet tea. "Drink this. It helps." Dren sipped the cold, sugary drink. It was absurdly sweet by Telluride standards. He drank the entire glass and asked for another. An hour later, his body recovered. He sat up slowly, looking around the smokehouse with new appreciation. "I owe you an apology," he said to Rosa. "When I arrived, I called your food primitive. I called your traditions wasteful. I was wrong." Rosa sat down across from him. "What changed your mind?" Drin thought carefully. "Telluride food is perfect. Scientifically, mathematically perfect. But perfection is cold. Perfection does not make you feel full." He touched his stomach. "This is not just fullness. This is completeness. I feel like something that was broken has been repaired." Miguel smiled. "That is what good food does. It fixes things." Dren looked at the old pitmaster with respect. "I wish I had known this 40 years ago. I might have lived a different life." 40 years ago, you were not ready," Miguel said. "Today you are. That is what matters." Dren stood up slowly. His diplomatic robes were ruined. His reputation as a harsh critic was in danger. His entire worldview had been shattered by smoked meat and baked beans. He had never been happier. "Rosa," he said, "I need to ask you something important." "Yes." "Can you teach me to make barbecue myself?" Rosa's face broke into a wide smile. She had been waiting for this question. "Ambassador," I thought you would never ask. We start tomorrow at 4 in the morning. Bring comfortable clothes. Dren nodded seriously. I will be here. That night, for the first time in decades, Ambassador Dren Kovalis dreamed about food. Good dreams. The Galactic Union Assembly Hall was filled with representatives from 217 species. They sat in a massive circular chamber, rows rising up toward a domed ceiling painted with stars. At the center stood a podium where speakers addressed the entire galaxy. Today, everyone had come to watch humanity fail. Ambassador Dren Kovalis was known throughout civilized space as the destroyer of cuisines. When word spread that he had spent 3 weeks on Earth, species that had never heard of the planet suddenly became interested. This would be entertaining. This would be brutal. Humans would learn their place. Secretary Harmon Webb sat in the Earth delegation section, sweating through his formal suit. Rosa Delgado sat beside him, calm and patient. She had spent those 3 weeks teaching Dren everything she knew. Now it was time to see what he had learned. The assembly speaker announced the proceedings. Ambassador Dren Kovalis of Telluri will now present his official assessment of Earth's candidacy for Galactic Union membership. Ambassador Dren walked to the podium. He looked different than he had 3 weeks ago. His posture was relaxed. His forearms moved freely. Most shocking of all, he was pulling a small metal device on wheels behind him. A murmur went through the assembly. That device looked like a primitive heating unit. Distinguished representatives, Dren began. His voice was strong, but not cold. I was sent to Earth to evaluate their culture and cuisine. I arrived expecting to find a backward planet with nothing to offer the galaxy. I planned to recommend denial of membership within the first hour. Webb closed his eyes. Here it comes. I was wrong. The assembly went silent. I was completely, utterly, embarrassingly wrong. Dren touched a control on the podium, and a holographic display appeared behind him. Images of the Delgado smokehouse. Images of brisket and ribs and pulled pork. Images of a blue-skinned Telluri covered in sauce, smiling like a child. Humans have developed something remarkable, Dren continued. They call it barbecue. It is the art of taking the toughest, most difficult ingredients and transforming them through patience, heat, and smoke into something transcendent. He began pacing, his forearms gesturing enthusiastically. A brisket is a terrible piece of meat. It is full of connective tissue. It is chewy and dry and unpleasant. Any sensible species would discard it. But humans do not discard it. They give it 14 hours of low heat and gentle smoke. They tend to it like a garden. They wait. The holographic display showed a time-lapse of a brisket cooking. Smoke curling, color changing, magic happening. And when they're finished, that terrible piece of meat has become something that made me weep. Yes, weep. I did not know I could still cry. I was certain those pathways were dead. But one bite of properly smoked brisket, and I felt like a child again. A Varadi delegate leaned forward. Ambassador, this is highly irregular. You are supposed to critique, not praise. Dren turned to face him. I have critiqued 17 planetary cuisines. I have destroyed restaurants, careers, and entire food industries with my words. I was proud of this. I thought I was maintaining standards. He paused. I was actually spreading misery. He walked to the small metal device he had brought. Humans taught me something the galaxy has forgotten. Food is not just fuel. Food is love. Food is community. Food is time spent caring about someone else's experience. He lifted the lid of the device. Smoke poured out. This is a smoker I built myself, using designs Rosa Delgado taught me. Inside is a brisket I prepared over the last 14 hours. Gasps echoed through the assembly. I would like to offer samples to any delegate who wishes to understand what humans can teach us. For a moment, nobody moved. Then a small Fenari delegate raised her hand. I will try it. Dren sliced the brisket and handed her a piece. She took a bite. Her 8 eyes went wide. She made a sound that her translator could not process. More, she said. Please. Within minutes, a line had formed. Delegates from species that had never spoken to each other stood side by side, waiting for a piece of smoked meat from a planet they had planned to reject. Dren served them all, his 4 arms working efficiently. The Varadi delegate tried a piece. He stopped speaking mid-sentence and simply chewed. An ancient Mellori representative, 700 years old and famously impossible to impress, asked for seconds. Two rival species from opposite sides of a generations-long conflict discovered they both liked extra bark. Webb watched in disbelief as the entire Galactic Union assembly transformed into a barbecue gathering. Delegates were talking and laughing. Barriers were falling, all because of smoked meat. Finally, the assembly speaker called for order. Ambassador Kovalis, I believe you had a recommendation regarding Earth's membership. Dren returned to the podium. Saw stained his formal robes. He did not care. My recommendation is immediate full membership, he said. Not because humans have advanced technology or military power or economic resources, but because they have something more valuable. They have remembered what the rest of us forgot. They know how to bring people together over food. They know how to take something tough and make it tender. They know how to be patient. He looked directly at Rosa. They know how to teach an old fool that there is still joy left in the universe. The vote was unanimous. Earth was admitted to the Galactic Union. And before the delegates left, Dren invited them all to Texas for a proper cookout. Every single one accepted. 5 years later, the galaxy smelled like smoke. Rosa Delgado stood on the observation deck of the Grand Culinary Station, watching ships arrive from 17 different star systems. Each vessel carried passengers who had come for the same reason, the 5th Annual Galactic Barbecue Championship. Below her, in a massive arena converted from an old cargo bay, pitmasters from dozens of species prepared their stations. Grills and smokers of every design sat ready. Mountains of meat waited in cold storage. The competition would begin in 2 hours. Rosa was now the Galactic Union's cultural food ambassador. It was a position that had not existed 5 years ago. It had been created specifically for her after the Great Barbecue Revolution, as historians now called it. The revolution had started small. After Earth joined the Union, barbecue restaurants began appearing on human colonies, then on alien worlds, then everywhere. Species that had eaten nutrient paste for centuries suddenly discovered the joy of smoked meat. Food became interesting again. The Telluri were changed most of all. Dren's public admission that his people had forgotten how to enjoy eating sparked a cultural movement. Young Telluri rejected the cold perfection of traditional cuisine. They wanted flavor. They wanted soul. They wanted barbecue. Now there were Telluri barbecue joints on 3 dozen worlds. They had developed their own style, using their 4 arms to manage multiple cuts simultaneously. Telluri pulled pork was considered among the best in the galaxy. Rosa smiled at the thought. Her grandmother would have loved this. A familiar voice came from behind her. You are daydreaming again. She turned. Dren stood there in casual clothes, an apron tied around his waist, saw stains on his collar. He had retired from diplomacy 4 years ago to open his own restaurant. Dren Smokehouse was now a franchise with locations on 62 planets. Just thinking about how much has changed, Rosa said. Dren nodded. 5 years ago, I wanted to destroy your culture. Now I sell brisket to senators and admirals. He laughed, a warm sound nothing like the cold metallic noise he had made when they first met. Life is strange. They walked down to the competition floor together. Pitmasters called out greetings as they passed. Rosa knew most of them by name. The barbecue community had grown, but it still felt like family. At the center of the arena, a young Telluri was setting up his station. His name was Drell, and he had won the championship twice already. He used traditional Texas methods, but with Telluri precision. His 4 arms could trim a brisket in half the time it took a human, but he never rushed the cooking. He had learned that lesson well. Are you ready? Rosa asked him. Drell looked up and smiled. His blue skin was already marked with ash. I've been ready since last year. That loss taught me something. What? Patience. I tried to add complexity. I forgot that simple is often best. He patted his smoker affectionately. This year, I return to basics. Oak smoke, salt and pepper. Time. Rosa nodded approvingly. Your grandmother would be proud. Drell's grandmother had been one of the first Telluri to visit the Delgado smokehouse. She had wept over her first bite of ribs, just like Vena had years before. She had returned home and started teaching her grandchildren to cook with fire instead of precision machines. The competition began 2 hours later. Smoke filled the arena like fog. The smell of cooking meat drifted through the entire station. Species that had once been enemies worked side by side, sharing techniques and trading secrets. 12 hours later, the judging was complete. Rosa and Drin sat at the head judge's table, exhausted but happy. They had eaten more barbecue in one day than most beings ate in a year. The winner was announced. Drell had taken first place with a perfect brisket that made 3 judges cry. In his victory speech, he stood before a crowd of thousands. Cameras broadcast his words across the galaxy. "I want to thank my family for teaching me that food is love," Drell said. "I want to thank the Delgado family for starting this revolution. And I want to thank Ambassador Drenko Valles for having the courage to admit he was wrong." He paused, looking out at the audience. 5 years ago, humans taught my people something important. They taught us that the best things in life cannot be rushed. They taught us that tough times can be transformed through patience. They taught us that joy is not efficient, and that is okay. The crowd roared with approval. Later that night, Rosa and Dren sat alone beside a small smoker on the observation deck. The station's artificial sunset painted the sky orange and pink. A brisket slowly cooked, filling the air with familiar comfort. "Any regrets?" Rosa asked. Dren was quiet for a moment. "Only that I wasted so many years being cold. I could have felt this warmth decades ago if I had been less afraid." "You were not ready." "No." He smiled. "But I am ready now." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the meat cook. From somewhere in the station, they could hear music and laughter. The championship celebration was continuing without them, but neither felt the need to join. Rosa cut a slice of brisket and handed it to Dren. He took a bite and closed his eyes. "Perfect," he said. "Not perfect," Rosa corrected. "Good. There is a difference." Dren laughed. "Yes, I think I finally understand." Above them, stars sparkled in the endless black. Ships passed carrying passengers who had discovered that the galaxy was a better place when people gathered around food. The universe was still vast and dangerous and cold, but it was a little bit warmer now, and it smelled like smoke.